Hello. Uh, for many years now, we in the education field have been in the midst of a standards based, I'm going to call it an evolution. It started around the turn of this century with the governor's task force on K-12 education, which developed the Common Core standards. And now, like most things education wise, the emphasis has pushed down to pre K with the Head Start outcome standards and other national organizations and many states creating their own content standards for early years learning. But the question I want to look at is, are these standards at odds with a nature based emergent curriculum approach, which emphasizes designing learning around children's strengths and interests? Hello, I'm Nicole Travillas-Fravel, and this is Wildwood Teaching. And today I'm going to look at the question of whether learning standards are at odds or can coexist with the type of nature-based emergent curriculum that we value here at Wildwood Teaching. Now, I understand the allure of standards from a government and administrative standpoint, but also from a teaching standpoint, with the recognition that the early years are essential and important for a foundation to all learning and how we know the impact that the early years have on so many of life's later experiences, academic and otherwise. It makes sense that there's an interest in ensuring the quality of those experiences. So, from a government and administrative standpoint, I mean, what better way of ensuring quality than creating quality standards? I mean, this way, you know that every preschool program, every teacher within each preschool program has the exact same roadmap for preparing children for kindergarten. And if we just follow the roadmap, then every child will be prepared for kindergarten success and, by extension, lifelong success. But the problem is that, especially with early learners, children's development varies. And the range of what's considered normal is quite broad. And furthermore, development in one area depends upon development in another area. So, unlike standards, early childhood development isn't broken down into discrete subjects and tidy little boxes. So, delineating pre kindergarten standards in this context, then, is like having a bunch of people and a bunch of different cars. So, say you have an old family sedan, say you have a Porsche, say you have an old pickup truck, and you are going to place each of those vehicles at some different point along the road. You're going to have each vehicle starting with a different amount of gas in their tank. But regardless, you're going to expect each of those vehicles to reach a pre-designated finish line at the exact same time. So obviously in this situation, this is an absurd expectation. So why would we do this to educators and children? When children are starting at different places with different tanks of gas, with different obstacles along their way. A nature-based emergent curriculum takes all of these variables into consideration, and it starts with a focus on the children, on their strengths, on their interests, rather than starting with a deficit model, right? What don't they have that I need to fill them with? And so looking at what they want to learn and are therefore ready to learn rather than what they need to catch up to. It is deeply engaged in the process of learning, right, rather than a desired outcome. Are we learning behaviors? Something that is going to serve us in the future and throughout life. So I often tell the story of when the state of California was developing their early learning standards. And I was a relatively new young teacher at the time. And I was excited. I was ready for my map to teaching. But a more veteran teacher was more hesitant about the standards. She worried that the standards would become the curriculum. So that rather than considering the children right in front of them and their care, the teachers would instead teach the standards. And so she gave an example of a gross motor standard that said something like, you know, children are able to change directions and avoid obstacles without changing their speed. And then she said, well, what if the teacher just takes her class and lines them up, and then stands next to them with a clipboard, and one by one, she has the children, run toward the slide. And, children, when you get to the slide, turn to the left and head toward the swings. And then, one by one, go, go, go. She watches the children and she, checks off the box. Did they do it? Did they not do it? And uh, obviously, in this example, you have superficial assessment that becomes your curriculum. So, is this the best use of children's time? Did they have any input into what they were learning or decision-making process about how they were going to learn it? Was there a question they were exploring? Was there a purpose to their running other than this is what the teacher told me to do? Now, I'm not suggesting that we ignore learning standards or that they don't have benefits. I'm simply recommending a better way of using them within the context of emergent nature-based curriculum. So understanding developmental milestones and having high expectations for what young children can learn definitely should guide teachers to scaffold learning experiences for children. They can guide discussions among teachers for what children might need and what direction they might go. They can guide discussions with parents about their children's developmental progress and what they're learning through the emergent curriculum. But the standards themselves are not a curriculum. They're the what, not the how. And when teachers are knowledgeable about the standards, they can use that information to observe and document children's behavior in real settings, real situations for whatever purpose the children have developed. So, for instance, right, if a teacher is noticing, most children are going to run while they're playing. So if a teacher is noticing that children are having trouble avoiding obstacles, like they're bumping into other children, or they have no way of adjusting their speed without smacking into an object or falling down before they hit that object, that's a clue, teacher, that you could bring in other opportunities that encourage the children to develop that skill. So you could bring in an obstacle course or objects to invite the children to make that obstacle course with you. Or you could invite the children to pretend to be animals that are moving in certain ways to support that gross motor development. Or you could bring in balls, hula hoops, something for children to chase, right? So these could be contexts that are meaningful to the children and their interests while still having that standard in your head. And then you're going to document through photographs, through stories, the children's progress. You don't need to set up a separate situation. And if you, as a teacher, are noticing that a child never runs, right? They're always hesitant in their steps. Again, that's an opportunity for you to think, how can I help the child have an opportunity to develop that skill? Do I need to introduce them to different terrain? Something that has a slope, something that is rocky, something that has bumps. Do I need to think about the sensory experience that might be involved so that it is a chance to walk barefoot over some type of different textures, or to have a dance party? And so following an emergent nature-based curriculum just requires the teacher to always have those developmental and learning standards in their minds while designing opportunities that are relevant to the children, so that we are centering the children and their interests and their strengths. And so this takes creativity. It takes deep professional knowledge. It isn't an exact roadmap, right? This is why we are early childhood educators. And so if you are ready to deepen your professional knowledge, there is a short, about 7-page guide attached to this video. I encourage you to download it. It's about place-based education and the power of place-based education, and how you can use it to help children learn the standards. So I encourage you to download that. Get in touch with me if you're ready to take the next step after that. If you know you want to work with Wildwood Teaching, you can get in touch with me through Facebook. You can get in touch with me through Instagram. You can comment right below this video. And then join me here next week when we will talk about how we document, right? How do we observe and record what we're observing so that we can use it to inform our next steps? I will see you there.